What up, everybody? Y'all seen a prison cell before? I know this ain't your typical prison cell, but a prison cell nonetheless. Um, when I say not a typical prison cell, what I mean is it's not like a state prison cell, but it's a prison of the consequences and the conditions associated with food addiction and morbid obesity, more or less the fear of those consequences that are associated with morbid obesity and food addiction, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, and a plethora of other conditions that coincide with morbid obesity and food addiction. And in the last 10 years that I have been over 450, 500, 550 pounds, I have had basically an emergency room triage center next to my bed so that any given time I would be able to, in a sense, triage myself. Now, I've been in a prison cell, I've been to state prison for drug addiction, and I've been in this prison for food addiction. I don't leave too far from this bedside, or I haven't for a long time, very often, because I test my blood pressure, my blood sugar, my oxygen over and over and over again throughout the day for fear that I'm gonna die. And people would say that that's probably irrational. What I think is probably irrational is to think of being over 500 pounds and over 45 years old and have being that large for the last 10 years or longer and not be afraid of the big kahuna or whatever it is, the stroke or whatever. And so I've lived in this constant fear so much that it's imprisoned me to this bedside. And so I just wanted to make a video and kind of show you guys what I went through. And I went through it, and the bigger I get or got, the worse it was. I would test several times throughout the day, and at night, as the closer it got to bedtime, the worse it got, to the point where I would sit right here and test my blood pressure over and over and over and over again until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, basically to the point where I just fell asleep like this. It was difficult for me to lay back and go to sleep because I was afraid when I did, I wasn't going to wake up. So basically, I would sit here with anxiety, health anxiety, to the point of testing and testing and testing to the point where I'm fall asleep with the cuff on my arm. Machine smoking because it's overheating from testing so much. Not really, but you get the point. And so and then there's the oximeter. This is, if you don't know what an oximeter is, I find it amazing that I do. But this, you've seen these at the emergency room. You put it on your finger and it tests your oxygen. Well, historically, for the last 10 years, every time I test, it runs around 92, 94. And in the last couple weeks to a month, I'm averaging 97, 98, and steady. And it hasn't been that way for over 10 years. And every Wednesday when I weigh myself, I feel better and better. And when I said, I don't get too far from my bed, even if I do get far from my bed, I don't get too far from my triage. I'm still afraid when I leave. So I have a doctor's medical bag that I put my portable test equipment. This is a portable, one of those wrist blood pressure monitors that I take with me. Of course, this is mobile. I can take that with me. My diabetes test kit when I feel nauseous or dizzy or lightheaded. That's one of my go-tos. So I would test my blood sugar, again, depending on how I was feeling, several times a day, several times a night, to make sure I wasn't having a blood sugar spike. Blood sugar runs in my family. Surprisingly, my blood sugar's always been fairly stable. Sometimes it's elevated, but I don't know if that was because of any condition. I have kept one of these on hand, And before you say it, I know this is something that you test every 3 or 4 months. However, when you're 550 pounds and understand the comorbidities and health risks of being morbidly obese to that degree and a food addict, you understand that this this is necessary. Maybe not 2 or 3 times a month, but definitely you want to keep an eye on these things because you are certainly a candidate for these comorbidities and medical conditions like diabetes, blood pressure, things like that. Another thing too, my blood pressure consistently had gotten to the point where it was, like 170, 180 over 80, 90. It's getting back down there to 120, 130 over 60, 70. Um, this is my nebulizer. Like I said, my breathing got bad. The heavier I get, once I get to about 520, anything above that, I have to take my nebulizer a couple times a day. And this is the mobile one, and I keep this one by the bed. Just this is like the travel guy. He works better than the other one, so I keep him by the bed, and that's the one that I used regularly. Whoops. And then I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago when this bad boy came around, and they said that the people that were most susceptible were overweight. Guess who? It was pretty scary at first. I was pretty scared. I wouldn't say as scared as the people that are still wearing their masks, but it was pretty scary. So you couldn't imagine how many of these tests I have taken. My wife don't like to talk about it. It's been a lot. It's been expensive. Of course, you have your thermometer. That's a necessity. And so this is something that kind of, it's not really medical, but this is for when you get a rash. And being morbidly obese, you're going to get rashes. And so this is so I can reach those folds. And sorry folks, I just want to keep it real though. That's what that is. That's always on hand. And then I have one more thing. That box right there, this is full of just like bandages and antibiotic medication, all kinds of things that was given to me by a wound care clinic because I had a hole in my foot. I don't know what you call it, a lesion or a big hole on the top of my foot. Actually, I had one on the top, one on the side for over a year, and it was probably the most painful thing I've ever been through. And I've herniated discs in my back. I've been through car windshields and car accidents. I've been in, just a plethora of painful experiences, and that by far was the worst. And the doctor, I asked her, I said, "What's the outcome? How long do I have to?" She said, "You'll probably deal with it for the rest of your life." Well, I think she assumed my life was getting close to being over because it seemingly it was I was having health conditions, because my legs were starting to swell and I was having venous issues in my legs, and well, those are gone. And so I didn't want to make this doom and gloom video and telling you about my experiences with death, but I did want to oh, I almost forgot. This isn't crack. I know these look like those crack vials from the 80s. What that is the heart medication that people take when they are having, I guess, a heart attack. They say when you feel the pain in your arm or the chest pain, they prescribe these to people with heart conditions. That's the nitrous pill. This isn't my prescription. I'm not prescribed this. I got this from a friend, and I keep this on hand because I'm afraid that I'm going to have a heart attack. And so I would rather be safe than sorry. And if I feel the big kahuna really coming on, and they say when it happens, you'll know. And I don't know, but I've kept these in my pocket for years. And this has probably been more of an attachment than any of these medical devices. Like Literally, there's been times where like my wife would wash these in my pocket or something, and it's like meltdown city, like I'm freaking out. And so, you know, but I, like I said, I didn't want to make a video that was all doom and gloom. What I wanted to do was show you where my condition, how severe it had gotten, and how imprisoned I had become because of those, um, fears and realities that something bad was going to happen. However, since I've lost 70 pounds currently, I would say in the last month or so, I haven't been taking my blood pressure multiple times a day, and I haven't been taking my temperature, and these have been sitting on the counter, not in my pocket. And well, of course, I haven't been tripping on that. My breathing, I showed you my oximeter. My breathing's been good, and you know, I don't know when I'll test this again, but for now, we're gonna put all this stuff away because I know that God has a better plan for me, and that I'm going to fight for that plan, and that we are well on our way to a better life where I don't have to be imprisoned by these fears, and where we're going to get better. And if you are suffering from morbid obesity or food addiction, I encourage you to fight this battle. It's not a battle. It's not a diet. It's not weight loss. You're fighting for your life. Um, I'm saving my life, and I hope you really evaluate your situation if you're morbidly obese, and you fight for your life as well, because you're worth it. I love you. God loves you. I appreciate you guys checking me out, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.